Okay, second go. Can you not screw it up this time? So things are moving forward with the next full installment of the X-Men franchise. Obviously, we've had a lot of movements lately on the spin-offs. We've had some news about Deadpool 2. There's been some word on New Mutants. But this is the confirmation of a big chunk of the cast for X-Men Dark Phoenix. Now, sort of the big news in this, because it seemed very up in the air, is the retention of James McAvoy as Professor Xavier, Michael Fassbender as Magneto, and Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique. Also returning will be Nicholas Hoult as Beast, Alexandra Shipp as Storm, Sophie Turner as Jean Grey, Ty Sheridan as Cyclops, and Cody Smith-McPhee as Nightcrawler. Notably absent from that list is Evan Peters as Quicksilver. That does not necessarily mean that he won't appear, but at this point it's looking unlikely because the thing is supposed to start shooting next month. So maybe they just realized that they had made him so powerful just to make that scene in Days of Future Past awesome that really he kind of breaks the narrative. Additionally, not yet signed but currently in talks is Jessica Chastain, who is in line to play the Shi'ar Empress, which that is a big deal because it means that basically all of the space stuff that got yanked out of the story when it was adapted as part of X-Men The Last Stand is being put right back in. This all sounds like pretty good news, doesn't it? So you're probably wondering, what's with the title of this video? Well, I'll explain. The Dark Phoenix saga is not a small story. It is pretty significant, especially for the time that it was written, and given that Chris Claremont has a tendency to overwrite, these are packed pages. There's a lot of story. Trying to adapt it straight to film is really a difficult prospect. I'm not gonna say it's impossible, but I am gonna say they're gonna completely screw it up, because what this thing needs to hinge on, what this story has to hinge on, is not the nuts and bolts. Like, I'm not saying it must be exactly like what's in the comic, but what needs to be retained is the heart of it, which is Jean going bad and having that mean something and its impact on the team. There's a big problem with that because this will only be the second film we've gotten with Sophie Turner as Jean Grey, and you know what? She didn't get a heck of a lot to do other than hint at Dark Phoenix last time around, and I can't imagine that they're going to be able to cram in enough building of her and her dynamic with the team to have it mean anything when she goes bad in Dark Phoenix. Especially considering they already botched the setup, because the whole thing, the reason Dark Phoenix was a huge deal, besides just how nuts it is the fact that Jean Grey was really the most boring character on the team. She was the good girl. So when she just went and completely turned on the team and became a threat to the whole galaxy, whoa, that was a big deal. Instead, when they introduced her in X-Men Apocalypse, she's already kind of being isolated and looked at like she's not gelling with the group. So already they've screwed up the initial dynamic that is supposed to be in place. My big concern about this, though, is the fact that they have brought back McAvoy, Fassbender, Lawrence. Now, I don't think they're bad I don't think Jennifer Lawrence is a bad actress, but I actually think she's quite good in a lot of things, but she just looked really bored in Apocalypse. I did not want them to bring her back. She doesn't seem to want to be here. Maybe it'll turn around. She was fine in First Class. In any case, they should not be bringing all three of those back because they haven't been able to get the story off of them since First Class. Really, they put the focus primarily on those three, and Wolverine in Days of Future Past. And you know what? For those stories, that was fine. Well, not for Apocalypse. So nothing was fine about Apocalypse, but I got it why they were doing it for those ones. This one, the story has to be on Jean and on these other characters. And if they're going to put in Magneto, Professor X, and Mystique, Magneto and Mystique, who have never had a part in this story before, to try and work them in, the more time that gets put on them, and it's going to be put on them because they're considered to be the big draws and they are the biggest name actors and characters in it, then the less time is going to be put on all the stuff that needs to be built properly because it hasn't been built in the movies leading up to this. Magneto absolutely should not be here. He should not be this kind of distraction, because that's all he's going to be, and he should not be soaking up time. And I like Michael Fassbender in this role a lot. He should not be here. And despite what I just said about Jennifer Lawrence, Mystique I will give a pass to, because they did kind of set her up as basically like the team leader. So, okay, she was an integrated part of the team. I was prepared to roll with that. But they should not have brought back all three. Really, the only one that they desperately should have been trying to get back was James McAvoy. The other two, they should have just let go. Lawrence, maybe, but Fassbender should not be coming back. And again, it just shows that the priorities are all screwed up if they're going to try and tell this story again. And their focus is all wrong. Now, as far as the whole idea of bringing the Shi'ar Empress into this, which means bringing in the outer space stuff and all of that stuff, on the one hand, the positive to that is it makes it very easy to distinguish it from the last time they tried to adapt it, which was all very grounded. But part of the reason it was much more grounded in The Last Stand was because the way that the X-Men universe has been built up to this point, it doesn't really accommodate the insane outer space stuff that got used in this story and has been a part of X-Men lore, but the movies have never dealt with it. So to throw it in there in a story that goes whole hog on it, that's a hard needle to thread. That could potentially just be really jarring and eye-rolling. And I know audiences are capable of swallowing the cosmic stuff, but when you have, 10, however many movies now that have established this is a semi-grounded, Earth-based franchise, to suddenly introduce basically Guardians of the Galaxy type stuff into that is going to be a hard pill to swallow. And at this point, I think the ship's already sailed for what they've established X-Men as being, as far as how it is as a franchise. Apocalypse was their chance to sort of bridge that gap, except they didn't go as bonkers with that as they could have, because that's what would have allowed us to sort of get to the more hyper-real reality that would allow for the alien stuff. But they didn't take it that far, and actually maybe it wouldn't have mattered even if they did, because not that many people liked Apocalypse anyways. Look, The Last Stand screwed up this story, but the way that it screwed up this story was by making it the B plot after it had been set up. It should have been the A plot. There are aspects of that film that still works, largely because we had already been with Jean Grey, Famke Janssen's Jean Grey, for 2 movies already. We were invested in her simply by her presence, and we don't have that kind of built-in investment into Sophie Turner, especially since she hasn't really felt like they haven't felt like a team. You can't just, we form the team, next film, we break up the team. You have to have a middle film where they just function as a team. This is why the Age of Ultron Avengers movie was important to have, even though it was a lesser film. You couldn't get to Civil War unless you had something like Avengers Age of Ultron first, because you bring the team together with Avengers, you have to show them basically together functioning as a team. Yes, they still got little things, maybe they're not perfect, but you just show them this is how they are. This is what the stakes are. This is what is getting lost when the team then splits and breaks apart and tears itself apart at the seams. If we don't have that middle film to truly appreciate what it is that they are when they are together and functioning, then we don't appreciate the loss of it. So Jean becoming the Phoenix, the Dark Phoenix, tears the team apart. It is a fundamental betrayal, and it makes them question, what do we do? But the investment of that is gone, because we're not going to have had a film of them just being the team, just being the X-Men. I think ultimately that was a big part of my problem with, I had a ton of problems with Apocalypse, but that was a big one in a lot of ways. It's like, we don't really have X-Men. We have Magneto, and we have Mystique, and we have Charles, and Apocalypse is in there. The others, they feel too background. They don't feel like, here's the team. It feels like, here's our cast, and here's the supporting cast. And in and of itself, that's not the end of the world, unless you do a story that really depends on us being invested in those more background characters, which this story does. And I'm not comforted at all by the fact that, so far as I can tell, Simon Kinberg is still attached to the direct. Simon Kinberg has been a producer on the X-Men for a long time. That's highs and lows. So I'm not going to say he's a bad thing for the franchise, but he's never directed a film before. And you're going to try and tackle this? Are you nuts? I mean, basically they're starting from zero because, these characters, these new, younger X-Men, like, we've had so little investment in. Most of them, at least I found, I didn't care. I think the only ones I liked at all were, I liked Beast already because he's been around a little bit, but I liked Storm and I liked Nightcrawler, but I think honestly that has more to do with the fact that I like those characters and I didn't feel like they completely screwed them up. But I didn't care about Jean. I didn't like Cyclops at all. And they need to be the heart of this story because he's in love with her, so his investment in her is part of how we feel the pain of that loss. But I didn't like her and I really didn't like him. I don't know how other people were, but I don't remember anybody raving about either of those two from Apocalypse. There is so much ground that needs to be regained in this movie that's going to try and tell the story. And again, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I don't see it happening. I think this is going to suck a lot. I think X-Men, the main franchise, is going to die, and it's going to live off of spin-offs. It's going to live off of Deadpool, maybe New Mutants, depending on how that hits. But this main series, I think this is going to suck, and I think there's a decent chance it'll underperform if people get the whiff of Apocalypse about it. So those are my thoughts on sort of where my brain went after the casting confirmations for X-Men Dark Phoenix. What are your thoughts on it? Whatever they are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, check me out on Twitter at Council of Geeks. Give a listen to the Council of Geeks podcast, available on iTunes and Stitcher. You can also listen to me as one half of the Punch Like a Girl podcast, also available on iTunes and Stitcher. And until next time, this council is adjourned.